I'm glad you dialed us up today. This is Parenting on Empty, podcast number 25. Well, a few days back, I met with my friend Steve Galen at a busy little coffee shop on the southeast side of Portland to talk about the topic of loss. Steve's mother-in-law passed away a few years ago, and about a year later, his father passed away. Both of my parents have passed away, my mom in 2005 and my dad in 2009. We talked about how we deal with and how the rest of the family deals with loss of a loved one. So let's join this conversation along with the hustle and bustle of serving Portland's finest coffee in this coffee shop. And thanks again for giving us a listen.
We had lost my mother-in-law in the springtime, right around spring vacation. My mother-in-law passed away, and then almost exactly a year later, my father passed away. And so I just noticed that kind of coming in sequence like that, not very far apart, of two people that I really loved and thought were great people. It had an interesting, it was definitely compounded, where you were still kind of getting used to one of those people,
right?
One of your favorite people not being around, and all of a sudden one of your other favorite people is no longer around. And I noticed the impact that had on me and on our whole family. But I also noticed in our daughter that second, after losing her grandma and then losing her grandpa, it manifested itself in some interesting ways where her sense of security went, dropped quite a bit. And we didn't notice it so much after her grandpa died, but then after the grandpa a year later, we definitely noticed it. So maybe it was there, and then it just put it over the edge.
Right, yeah.
And for her, and all of a sudden she really never wanted to be separated from my wife.
Okay.
And always be like either know where my wife is at all times or be with her.
Right.
Most times. And so that, I did notice that change. But, as far as my own changes, I mean, I definitely felt the need to simplify my own life and responsibilities. And so where I kind of had three parts to my life, which was family, work, and volunteer, one of those had to go, and obviously it wasn't going to be family and it wasn't going to be work.
Right.
So that was one immediate change, is my desire to and my fulfillment from volunteering kind of went away. It just dissipated almost overnight. Julia, who's 13 now, she handled the loss of her grandmother really well. It seemed like she just, because she was interacting with Sue, her grandma, when Sue was in the hospital and kind of on the decline. And Julia was, very, just really positive and wasn't bothered by the hospital environment or that Sue was, declining. And we even thought, well, Julia, maybe she'll make a good nurse someday. She was handling that so well.
Right.
But, obviously there's things that then she's not articulating.
Right.
So it's like, on the surface looks good, and then it wasn't until my dad died the year later that then there was clearly some issues, right, with that sense of security. And am I going to lose my mom next,
right,
or my dad? And she, she's got that tighter relationship with her mom. So I think that became and so the way we dealt with it, I guess, was just to, I think my wife had more of the conversations, but trying to talk to her about that. What is it that you're afraid of or whatever. And then we moved into just counseling. So we got a counselor who focused on, child child counseling, including anxiety issues and grieving. I'm sure we talked to her about all that, what was going on with Julia.
Right.
So that counseling, I think it went on for about a year. And, definitely saw some progress.
Right. Now, did you struggle with that when you're having these, when you're dealing with the fact that here's your daughter and she's going through emotions, and now it's a whole different level of emotions, and it's things that you really can't do anything about.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's there's the falling and scraping the knee and consoling the daughter, but now this is a whole different kind of emotion. How did you kind of navigate through that, saying my daughter is going through some emotions that I really don't have?
Right.
I don't have the
Equipment.
yeah. To make this better.
Right. Yeah. Well, we would, talk to her, because you're right. It's not like it's like you skin the knee. You can console, and then the knee heals.
Right.
So there's no way to come back from someone dying.
Right.
Right. There's no way to recover that. So I'm thinking through some conversations where you just try to make her feel secure. And it's like, that I remember she was more afraid to try new things, and then we try to remind her that, and we're still going through some of this where,
oh, sure.
Now remember where you were afraid to do this or that, and then you did it and it worked out just fine. Remember that feeling where you were. So we talked to her more recently. What I've talked to her about is that voice inside you that's the bringing on that fear.
Okay.
And we're making you afraid to do something new or try something new. That voice, you've got another voice that is the voice of, reason, that knows that you were okay like another time.
Okay.
And you got through it just fine. And so you're just going to tell that one voice, that, hey, I acknowledge what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I hear you, but I'm not going to go along with what you're saying. I know that I'll be okay. And, thank you for your, because we told her about a certain amount of fear is a survival thing. Like, you don't want to, it keeps us from putting ourselves into harm's way or whatever.
Right.
But we don't have to have that govern our lives.
Yeah.
And that's really my concern is quality of life. Like, if she's afraid to do too many things, will she miss out on what life has to offer?
Exactly. Think of times when you have come through and you've been successful. A lot of people say that that's really one of the real powers of journaling, because you could go back and say, right now I'm feeling completely defeated, but that's not the whole totality of my life. Mm-hmm, and sometimes you can tell yourself that I am a complete failure. And sometimes in parenting, and I know my wife deals with that, feeling that, I am a complete failure at parenting because we have a teenager.
Those go hand in hand.
And that's just hand in hand. You have a teenager, you will be a complete failure at parenting. So, I'm being facetious there, but those feelings do come up, and those feelings of depression, and depression comes in all different levels,
right.
But it can be very deceptive. And when it comes, sometimes a lot of just normal, practical thinking goes right out the window.
I remember at my mother-in-law's funeral service, there's a friend of mine who was actually my music teacher in high school, and she so she's older than I am and has more life experiences, and she pulled me aside and she goes, I just want you to remember that your wife is going to be, so my wife's mom had passed away, and we're at her, my wife's mom's funeral service, and this friend of mine pulls me aside, and I said, I just want you to know, your wife is going to be completely out of her mind for about a year.
Okay.
And what she meant by that was just what you were just referring to, that her logical thinking and those patterns and the way that she would normally make decisions and so forth are going to be thrown for a loop.
Okay.
And so that was really, because I had never experienced loss like that before. And I said, okay, thanks for letting me know.
Thank you.
And that was really good because, it's the same with me where after my dad died, I definitely, went through a period where I lost confidence, like where I normally have a lot of confidence in my career or, just even my own, like, what I say or what I, decision making and so forth. And you're right. That just all gets, like, impacted. You don't even know where that's coming from.
Exactly.
It's just like, what happened to like that other person that I remember being.
When these kind of things come and begin to overwhelm you, you start thinking, I need to get back to the basics. You're thinking, okay, what are the important things?
Right.
The family,
Right.
the job. Other things have to go by the wayside.
And the job mainly because of the family, right?
You're right.
I mean, the job is
People
mainly
have to eat.
Yeah, it's mainly important to take care of the family. So
Right.
it's family and then family plus, really. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So as you were thinking through that, talk me through a little bit about that. How you talked about coming to that decision. How did you implement that?
Well, I just am by, I freed up time by dropping the volunteer work. It created, it brought back time that I had to both focus and spend with those other two things, the family and the job. So I just made it a priority to do more family things, to be there more, and just hang out, do things as a family. I thought that was, I thought it was important before.
Right.
But, again, I was splitting my time among three primary activities. And so it just, by taking out one of those three, it then freed up time to focus more on the family. And so, it's interesting because I would say that we, it didn't always result in like things that doesn't mean things got like immediately all rosy, with the family.
Yeah.
It just meant that I was there more to go through whatever those ups and downs were.
Right.
And again, I'm not trying to paint the picture that I was absent, but I definitely had more time then to do like, let's do this as a family, or let's do that.
Yeah.
And so, so that helped.
Was there issues of guilt as you were relinquishing different volunteer duties and responsibilities, where people are saying, "Hey, what about this? And why aren't you helping out with this?" Was that a struggle?
Yeah, the transition there was a struggle, and also was a struggle knowing that I, things could be different if I was then engaged still.
Okay.
And so that trying to transition those volunteer duties and so forth, and seeing, then varying levels of success with the people that those were transitioned to. I'm like, okay, I know that if I step up and step in, and give energy and time, that I could help improve the situation. But so I had to resist that temptation because I had done that before, and I was, I could see the result of my investment, but I wasn't always happy that I had to make that investment.
Right.
If that makes sense. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I struggled with that a bit, but it definitely got easier. I felt like that I was always reminded of that scene in Forrest Gump, the movie Forrest Gump, where he's running and he's like becomes well known because he's been running like forever, and he just keeps running. He's got the beard, right, and the worn out Nikes, and there's a scene where a bunch of people start following him, and there's a scene where he stops in the middle of a road, like in a desert. It kind of looks like he's in the middle of nowhere, and he stops, and all these people behind him who've been running with him, they stop and they're just looking at him, waiting for him to say something. It's like, he stopped. What's that all about? And then he goes, "I'm done running now." I don't know if you remember that. It was like,
yeah,
I'm
that's
done
right.
running now. And that's really how I felt. Okay, I'm done volunteering now.
Okay.
And so I just felt like I'd done it, and I'd done it till the tank was empty. And I think emptying the tank was these losses, right?
Yeah.
Helped to empty it quicker.
Right.
So that's just how I felt. So that made it easier to let go.
Okay.
Than whereas before maybe it wasn't as easy sometimes when I tried to transition things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just the willingness to say there are other things that are more important.
Right.
And from the outside, it doesn't look like that, but from the inside, it is.
Yeah.
One of the examples I've used many times is from a scriptural reference when Christ is on the Sea of Galilee. He's on a boat, and he's healing these people. And there's a huge line of people, and he's healing these people. But then he says, and in the passage it says, then he gets in the boat and he rows away with his disciples. what's going through the mind of the guy who's next in line?
Yeah.
He's blind or he's crippled.
Right.
Well, what about me? And that seems like a pretty important thing for this guy. You know, if you kind of look through this guy who needs the healing and his whole situation, that seems pretty critical. It seems, what could be more important? And are you going fishing, or you're rowing away in a boat? What, you got some kind of cruise that you booked or something like that? And there's really no mention of that. And the reason he did, he got in the boat and rowed away because he had something that's really impressing. It was far more important than him. He doesn't say that, but it's what you see in that is a very specific direction. This is what I have to do. I'm doing what I have to do, and the responsibility that's been put before me.
Right.
And I think sometimes we lose sight of that, to say, I do have a family, I have a responsibility to them, and if the other things that I'm doing start to jeopardize that, even though they are important, and they're for very good causes and for very good reasons, I have to do just like Forrest Gump did and say, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done with that for right now.
Done with that for now.
Well, we're gonna wrap this up with this last topic with regards to work. This podcast isn't necessarily how-to, or it's not here to give you all these great words of wisdom, although there have been, I think, some great words of wisdom. But the last thing, when you talked about your work and you were saying, okay, I'm scaling down and just getting down to the basics, providing for the family, doing my job, was there communication in your vocation with fellow employees or employer to say, here's what's going on, and this is going to have some kind of impact on what I do? How did you work through that, navigate through that?
Yeah, I mean, after so the job I had when my dad died, my boss was literally halfway around the world in New Zealand, and he and I had a good relationship, so I was kind of on my own in a way to run my own department.
Okay.
He gave me a lot of leeway to do that, but I also had a staff, and so, my staff, I know they saw a noticeable difference in my engagement level right after my dad died. So this was before I had figured out I have to focus. It was more, I was just kind of not really all there.
Right.
And they knew that. And I remember talking to a few of them, and I said, so clearly, I'm dealing with the loss of my dad, and I know I'm not as engaged or whatever. And so I just let them know that I know that they recognize this.
Good, yeah.
And so there was that component of it. And my boss was really good about it. I think he had lost a parent, and he understood. He gave me room, and he said, if you need to do this, do it, or whatever. But I never really had a talk with him about how I was feeling or dealing with it, but I did with my staff. So that I did deal with that. In my next job after that, I did let my boss know that I had.
Okay.
Look, I'm shedding my volunteer roles so I can, because I really want to focus on this opportunity.
Right.
So I did tell my boss after that I had been shedding responsibilities to be able to focus more on job and family.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think are important, is communicating. I don't know in issues with life circumstances that you can communicate too much. I don't know that that's, I think often we tend to fall on the lack of communication.
Yeah.
Something traumatic happened and I don't know what's going on inside of their mind. I just know that they're absent. They're not there. And I think the best thing you can do is just communicate that. Say, yeah, it's okay if I know it's for a season, or if I can just be a part of that.
Right.
Communicating with your kids, with your wife, employer. I think that's all a critical part of dealing with those kind of life emotions.
And I think that communication is important. I mean, I would say that if for my wife and I going through those two losses, relatively back to back, and I know you did that as well. We probably haven't or didn't and still haven't communicated enough about that and how we do, but not probably enough. So to your point about you can never over communicate. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, I know we haven't, talked. We talked to our kids. We
Yeah.
talk to our respective kind of the parents that are still alive and so forth, but we haven't probably talked to each other as much
Right.
as we should. So I think it's a good point
Okay.
for people to think about and for me to think about that. But I was also thinking about my own transition, like where I said I'm, because I think I did go through depression, but I don't think people are good at self-diagnosing depression.
You're right. I think that's
Because I was just like, well, why do I not feel like myself?
Yeah.
And so, but so it did take a job change, but it also took another big help was I went on a kind of a pilgrimage on my own.
Yeah.
I took a trip that I've been wanting to take my entire adult life.
Yeah.
And to Nashville and to Memphis, and just basically these music centers, because music is a big part of my past and
Right.
and life, and so it was I didn't intend for it like this, but it basically just kind of was refining myself in a way, and so ever since that plus the new job, it's just it's like not like exactly like a switch, because I think I've been processing things and dealing with things, but it's just a big difference in. And okay, I feel more like my old self or whatever.
Yeah,
As
right.
a result of those types of changes and those processes, and that's a good place to be. And before it was just like, my confidence wasn't there, and I was questioning decisions and questioning
Right.
things I had been saying, and but I don't have that.
Yeah. Okay.
Same issue.